let's get to football.
Let's do it, Paul.
I wasn't here, obviously, Monday. I jumped in with you guys for a few minutes. And so at this point, I'm not going to rant and rave. The decision's been made. We all know. Next hour, we'll get into what I think is an odd decision by Todd Monken not to play Shedeur Sanders, and if there's anything we can read into that. But for now, we got to get into, the frustration level, Jason, is through the roof. And we're going to get into that in a second. But, Mike, you got something from a comment about Todd Monken said when he was asked about whether the fans had any influence, which obviously they didn't.
Yeah, we're in the 72-hour window since the decision to where the fan reaction is still at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Todd Monken was asked about whether or not fan sentiment played any role whatsoever in his decision to name Deshaun Watson the starting quarterback. And this is what Todd Monken, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, had to say in response to that question. Quote, "Absolutely not. Zero. There was nothing to do with that. Ultimately, the fans want us to win. Ultimately, to put a good product on the field. That's really what they want. And that's our job as coaches, why we're hired, to try and put the best product on the field. And when we don't, then I understand their frustration. But ultimately, they don't decide who plays. I mean, who would I be if I let someone outside of the building decide who plays?" End quote.
Yeah, he's
Meaning
right.
no fan sentiment played a role in this decision. Should it have, though, considering the fan base Shedeur Sanders has and the way Deshaun Watson has interacted with fans here in Cleveland over the past 4 or 5 years?
I think if he wanted to use Deshaun Watson's comments and the fan reaction as a tiebreaker in his mind, okay. But ultimately, you can't. The fan opinion should not ever play a role in football decisions.
There's an old cliche in sports. If you worry about what the fans think, you're going to be sitting with them.
That's right. That's right.
So you can't. Now, I have probably fallen victim to this. I think I do a pretty good job most of the time. I like trying to remove emotion from it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it is the emotion when I say I don't want to see Deshaun take another snap because I see no upside in that whatsoever.
Yeah.
But from his vantage point, I get it. Like, I get why they picked Deshaun. I don't agree with it, but I understand where they're coming from because they think he's farther along and farther advanced than what Shedeur is. So in his mind, it makes perfect sense. But no.
So you don't believe, and again, I know you guys have talked about it, but I wasn't here, and I didn't hear you. You don't believe any of this, that it was forced from above?
No, I don't.
I don't either.
I think this was all, and we talked about it. I know I've said this on the show before.
Yeah.
Like, go back to last year when they traded when they traded Flacco.
Yeah.
They installed Dillon as the starter, and they had to name a backup.
Yeah.
Early in that week, Kevin was sort of hinting around like it might be Bailey Zappi.
Right.
And he was telling people internally, I'm going to name Bailey the backup. 48 hours, I don't know the exact timing, but 48 to 72 hours later, Shedeur was named the backup. And in my mind, I was convinced, he was forced to do that.
Right.
Because he just got done telling people it was going to be
right.
Bailey. And I have yet to find any credible evidence to support that. Everyone I've ever asked, any digging I've ever done on it has always come back, that is Kevin's call. It was Kevin's call to make Shedeur the backup. So I have to then use that information on this and say it's Todd's call.
Yeah.
Because the Browns and Andrew Berry have long believed like the head coach has to have control of the quarterback room.
Yeah.
Like you're cutting the legs out from underneath the head coach if you're demanding that he play a certain quarterback.
Right.
Like, that's just not, and I understand it's the Browns and no rules apply to the Browns.
Right,
I get that. But in this instance, I do believe that is true, and it was Todd's call and Todd's call alone to start Deshaun.
Yeah. Now, the Shedeur fans want to blame they want to say it's forced by the front office because that means none of this has to do anything with Shedeur.
Correct.
Which I get. I understand fans. You got you guys you love. I get it. I don't believe it was. I don't even understand why. And I know we don't want to dwell on this at this point, but it doesn't even make sense to me why Jimmy Haslam would want to play Deshaun Watson over Shedeur Sanders anyway. The spent money, I just don't buy that. Now, I will say that Sean King, who was on my podcast yesterday, he thinks it did play a role, and he actually thinks that that this is going to benefit Shador in the long run because he's like, well, he's going to get a chance this year anyway because Deshaun Watson is not going to get through the season.
I agree with Sean on that point, by the way.
And Shador will be in a better position to have success because the offensive line will have developed some chemistry and the rookie wide receivers will be played a little bit, so it will benefit him in the long run. But I don't see the force from the front office or the ownership. And if that's the case, obviously that the only answer is that Todd Monken thinks Deshaun Watson gives them a better chance to win. But even as someone who does not have a lot of hope in Shador Sanders, I have a little bit, but I don't have a lot. I just don't see how he came to that decision. But that's what he came to. It is what it is. But I completely understand why he didn't let fans influence him. And I completely understand why fans are furious.
Well, and another reason why I don't think Haslam forced this, though, there's the whole money spent thing.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is, in about a week to 2 weeks, they're going to start selling PSLs to the new stadium.
Yeah, right.
Why would you want to infuriate your entire fan base 7 to 14 days before you start asking them for tens of thousands of dollars?
It doesn't make any sense.
So if anything, that's more motive to start Shador.
Right.
And try and build some goodwill within the fan base.
Yeah.
If you're trying to ask them to put down deposits and all this on the PSLs.
Yeah.
So, no, it doesn't make any sense. The easy knee-jerk reaction is to say, well, this was forced on him. But if you really understand, and again, I have no faith Deshaun's going to play well. But he is a veteran who's been in this league for a number of years. He understands the rigors of the NFL, the cadence of the NFL. And I don't mean cadence at the line. I just mean the rhythm of the week. And he's ahead of where Shador is. And I know nobody wants to hear that. He's ahead of where Shador is. Now, you can take that as an indictment on Shador, that how is he not past Deshaun, given how bad Deshaun has been. But the reality is, in the coaches' minds in Cleveland, Deshaun is ahead of where Shador is right now.
Yeah.
And I don't see, this,
I just find it so hard to believe. But
this idea that, if they start 0-2, then they'll go to Shador.
No.
I don't understand that. What's going to change in 2 weeks? It's 2 weeks. What's going to change in 2 weeks?
I don't know. If they did that, then to me he looks even worse, Monken. If you change your mind after 2 games.
I agree. 2 games isn't a big enough sample size to figure out whether you made the right or wrong decision.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think, how long was it last year? I feel like it was about 2 or 3 games before we started screaming, play somebody else, play Dylan. When Flacco looked horrendous.
Right.
He was awful at Baltimore. He was awful.
Yeah.
What was the second game?
Well, Cincinnati was the first, Baltimore was the second,
Cincinnati
and
was
then
the
they
first.
beat Green Bay in the third game in that weird game where he didn't particularly play well, but Grant Delpit had the interception. They came back and won.
Well, I'm already saying don't start Deshaun Watson.
I'm just saying, if they're 0-2 and he doesn't play well, you know this whole panel is going to be screaming, play Shador.
Right, but I think they should play Shador already. So last year was actually, in a way, worse because we weren't saying that at the beginning of the year. Well, some fans were, but we weren't saying just. I think we all agreed starting Flacco last year made sense.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, but I don't know. It's just at least when Shador plays, there's some potential of a couple of big plays. There's obviously potential of a lot of mistakes. Deshaun Watson threw checkdowns on every pass in the preseason. In the preseason, when there's no risk.
Well, that's what he was doing when he was last time he was healthy.
Yeah.
Well,
the Browns. I mean, the bottom line is the Browns have the worst quarterback room in the league. It's not debatable.
I totally agree with that.
And that's why ultimately they're not going to win a lot of games. So, all right, we'll take a break. When we come back, should the Guardians be looking to extend one of their new additions already?